Rethinking buildings, how they can be used or how their organization can be reimagined, is a crucial step towards maintaining innovative and engaging municipalities, townships, and communities. But in the larger regions of central Ontario, empty buildings aren't the only issue. With low interest rates, rising home prices have also driven up rental markets. And despite unemployment rates being at a near record low, the wages earned in this seemingly booming economy have remained stagnant or declined relative to inflation since the 2008 financial collapse. Although these factors have certainly exacerbated the housing crisis across cities and towns in Canada, the root of the problem can be traced back even further to 1993, when the federal government froze funding to public housing and reduced the social funds made available to provinces. When the onus for public housing was transferred to the provinces in 1994, only Quebec and British Columbia developed provincial policies. All the other provinces and territories chose to transfer the public housing authority to municipalities.
This seems to have been a huge mistake, and according to the Canadian Observatory on Homelessness, it was. Their report states the 1993 decision resulted in a drastic reduction in the amount of affordable housing available and can be linked very directly to an increase in homelessness across the country.
In 2017, the federal government announced a plan called the National Housing Strategy, and it pledged to spend $40 billion over the next 10 years to address the problem of inadequate housing and homelessness, but the results of this plan are still to be seen. In the meantime, since 1994, municipalities, when they have attempted to deal with the issue, have relied on a combination of charity, not-for-profits, and petitions for the allocation of provincial funding to help solve the problem of homelessness within their own communities. In the fall of last year, we visited a closed-down motel in Barrie, Ontario. At the time, there were tall skids of lumber piled up near the entrance, and the former motel rooms have been completely gutted back to the studs.
Put in this new beam and overhang, and then we're about to pour this curb on Thursday morning, I believe.
Barrie is a city with a population over 141,000. It's located about an hour outside of Toronto on the west shore of Lake Simcoe. And as of June 2019, it's the fourth most expensive rental market in Canada. It's not just bad for renters. In an article published by TVO, the affordability threshold for Barrie, which is the recommended maximum house price for a person earning the average local income, is $428,500. The average house in Barrie costs $604,000, nearly $200,000 more than the affordability threshold. In 2015, the city set a goal to build 840 affordable housing units by 2024. The conversion of the old motel was presented as a cost-effective way of reaching that goal, but they needed someone to build it.
I'm Timothy Kent.
Okay, hi, I'm Brandon Day.
And we are in our shop at Community Builders out in Midhurst, Ontario.
Yeah, we are a social enterprise construction company, and we try to concern ourselves with affordable housing as well as meaningful, purposeful employment and training.
Community Builders is a social enterprise that operates as a wing of a registered charity called Redwood Park Communities. And like other charities we've heard from, they were also exploring ways to fortify their funding base.
We always operated from a social enterprise mindset. Like we never operated ever as a regular mindset of sort of an old school charity, you would think, where they're relying on government funding or relying on donations or whatever. We always kind of looked at it right from the very beginning. How can we make this sustainable? And in order to do that, we need to make use of some of the regular market tools that are out there. And we just kind of thought, hey, what if we sort of like created or formalized, I guess, this idea of a construction company that could do some of these builds that we were working on for the affordable housing, but also do things in the community at a market rate that we could then pour some of those funds back into more affordable housing.
By building houses at market rates and diverting the access funds back towards the charity projects, they're able to sustainably pursue their charitable goals of creating more affordable housing units. But eventually, they also discovered a ripple effect of working within the communities they were servicing. This is actually another common thread in social enterprises. Additional social good happens, sometimes unexpectedly, through the work.
And as we went along, and some of the individuals that we started to work with and hire that had barriers to employment, and it wasn't necessarily on purpose at the beginning, we realized what a great opportunity to start training and working with individuals that have barriers to employment and training them up in the construction trades and either helping them continue to work along with us or get a job somewhere else that's well paying and help them work themselves, I guess, in a way, out of their own poverty or their own inability to be able to get a job somewhere and be work ready and ready to go. And so we started pouring our time and effort into deliberately seeking out individuals that had barriers to getting jobs somewhere and hiring them and training them and working alongside them.
Okay, I feel like we should pause here for a second and get into some detail about affordable housing and homelessness, because it merits a little time. Shelter is a basic human need. We can't do work on poverty reduction without also doing work on housing. There are many versions of solutions to deal with the crisis of homelessness. Even though Community Builders supports people with barriers to employment find a way back into the workforce, they are firmly in favor of a housing first model of addressing homelessness. Housing first is exactly what it sounds like, providing homes as an essential starting point. The approach was first popularized in New York City in the 1990s. It centers on quickly moving people experiencing homelessness into independent and permanent housing and then providing additional supports and services as needed. It's an important distinction because this approach doesn't believe access to housing should be contingent upon readiness or on compliance, such as employment or sobriety, which the vast number of models operating in Canada do. Instead, the model understands that the root of these problems aren't personal, but systemic.
So many of the families we recognized that we were working with didn't have those support networks. They were, they either didn't have family at all because they had lost them somehow, and a lot of them came out of trauma and tragedy, which built another whole, level of mental health issues and everything on top of that.
Housing First has slowly been gaining traction over the past few decades, and the reason why isn't only a compassionate one. This is something that social enterprises like Community Builders understand. By housing people and addressing the root causes of homelessness, by providing access to counseling and community, the Housing First model is also the economically responsible choice.
At the end of the day, if you have a social impact, in our case, where we've provided somebody with some affordable housing, they've got some job training, they're making some good money, they're now paying taxes, they're spending their money in the economy, they're not in jail, they're not making frequent trips to the hospital, they're not having drug overdose issues, they're not having all these things. It's saving the government millions and millions of dollars. We need to start thinking differently about how do we do more of that? Because that's more money in everybody's pocket.
As well as measurable differences like lightening the load on police forces, hospitals, and drug clinics, Housing First can also have an impact on other things that are harder to measure. Social enterprise is a holistic model, and when it works well, the social gains are also holistic for everyone involved.
Yeah, and that's the hot topic right now too, like how are you measuring your impact? And sometimes that's difficult. We have a friend who works at the Furniture Bank, and he said he gives dignity to people every day. How do you measure that? And so that always stuck with me.
This idea of valuing people's dignity every day is likely also a common theme among authentic social enterprises. In part 2, we'll hear from people at the Furniture Bank and meet an academic who is trying to find metrics to measure these less direct benefits of social enterprise work.